Hello, it's Debbie Potts, and I am back from Austin, Texas for Hack Your Health Conference. And I am super excited, looking forward to talking to a lot of the speakers that were at the show because big topics, as we've been diving into, as how to improve the aging process, liver gallbladder function, the vagal nerve, heart rate variability, how to prioritize protein and help build muscle as we age. So, a lot of the areas I'm passionate about on this show, to what we were talking a lot about at Hack Your Health conference. As we get older, we should be striving to thrive, not complaining, I can't do this, things aren't the same, blah, 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 excuses of blaming the aging process and not embracing it, lifting heavy weights, getting outside, morning sunshine, getting out in the evening around sunset, prioritizing sleep, managing our stress. As I've said for years, the holistic method is about managing your stress, optimizing your sleep, getting good digestion, liver health from the inside out. We want to work on all these different things, these hidden sources of chronic stress and external sources of chronic stress, what we can control, what we can't control, but how we can manage better by doing some breathing exercises, getting outside in nature, getting to your happy place. I moved to North San Diego in, well, gosh, almost 4 years ago, and found just a little bit slower pace of life and changed my whole life because the way I was living life as a race every day was not helping me thrive. I was always exhausted and burning myself out, even though I stopped doing Ironmans and marathons and 50K races and long distance cycling events. And I started doing shorter stuff and traveling more, but I was still day to day having a lot of stress. Owning a fitness studio and then closing that was very emotional for me, added another layer of stress. And then changing my career to be personal trainer and coach and helping people as a holistic health practitioner. So, with that, I'm going to make sure we go over what is the holistic method? What are the lifestyle habits we need to be aware of as we age and not blame the aging process for being tired, for being heavier, feeling fat and slow and sluggish, and not being able to sleep? Because a lot of those things we can help improve. Maybe we're not going to be the same as we were 30, but we can be the best we can be right now and take ownership of our health today so we can live our best life when we are older, 70, 80, 90, 100. So I want to go into a little bit more on metabolic flexibility. We talked about it last few episodes, but I want to make sure you have some questions. We're going to go through it. So, metabolic flexibility. If you don't know what it is, go back to previous slides, podcast on my slides. We went over metabolic health, looking at your future self, how metabolic flexibility, metabolic inflexibility, mitochondria health, metabolic health are all connected. And then I'll go into how to measure your metabolic health and metabolic flexibility today. Just to review, metabolic flexibility is the ability to switch, flexing in and out of your source of metabolism of carbohydrates or fat. So what are you burning for fuel source? How we create energy, our mitochondria are known for years as our powerhouses of the cell. They do a lot. And then what is metabolic health? And so we look at all this connected, as well as insulin sensitivity. And when we get to be more insulin resistance from various reasons of chronic stress and aging and females' hormones, there's a lot of different things that impact our insulin sensitivity, not just what we're eating. So we want to go into what is metabolic flexibility? How do we improve it? How do you know if you need to improve it? You got to test. So you can't manage what you're not measuring. So measuring with what I do, PNOE metabolic testing kit, and then day-to-day measurement using a Lumen device is helpful. So mitochondria health is crucial for supporting metabolic flexibility, overall metabolic health, and dysfunction of our mitochondria, as Dr. Casey Means talks about in her new book. Dysfunction leads to metabolic inflexibility related to health issues. So metabolic health encompasses an efficient functioning of metabolic processes, supporting metabolic flexibility, healthy mitochondria. And so if we have metabolic inflexibility or mitochondria dysfunction, we're not going to be functioning at optimal level. So we've talked about metabolic syndrome. This is the hallmark of what we're looking at as we age to improve our health. We're looking at these markers, having at least 3 of these markers: elevated waist circumference, insulin resistance in terms of elevated fasted glucose, but ideally we should know our insulin, high blood pressure, elevated triglycerides, and or low HDL. So we've got to look at these different markers, as well as we want to get a little bit deeper into our lipid panel as APOB, looking at LP little a, and different things that you'll hear people as Dr. Peter Attia, and in Wild Health, we talked to Dr. Dawson about this as well. So we've got obesity, insulin resistance, systemic inflammation can trigger and metabolic inflexibility. So a lot of you are athletes listening to my show, my podcast. So I talk about here how to be fit and healthy from the inside out. So a lot of this information, if you are sedentary, but what if you are on the opposite of the bell curve of optimal amount, the Goldilocks effect for everything? If you're doing the right amount of exercise, and there's too much exercise, too little exercise, too much. So we want to find that right amount. So we can measure with Lumen. We can do a metabolic test with PNOE metabolic cart that I do here in North San Diego. So come to Del Mar, Solana Beach. Our body's ability to switch from high levels of fat oxidation during fasted states to increase carbohydrate utilization during feeding states. If you're eating carbohydrates, you're going to often, well, it depends who you talk to, but if you're doing more of an anaerobic HIIT zone 4-5 workout with zone 1 recovery, you're going up high, coming down. That's HIIT training, high intensity interval training. If you're doing sprint interval training, it's coming up to zone 5, coming down to zone 1. And that's going to be more that 10 to 30 second all out interval training. Some people will probably perform a little better with some extra carb burning fuel when we'll go over how to use Lumen pre-workout, post-workout. So you can be a carnivore and gluconeogenesis, create carbohydrates, or you can add in some real form of like some berries. I just ate some blueberries and some cottage cheese. And, there's different things you could do. So some people, as I was just at Hacker Health, were more strict carnivore. And so figuring out timing for fueling for the type of workout, we'll talk to those carnivore people coming up next few months. So metabolic syndrome, we went over all this previous episode, measuring your glucose, mitochondria health. So today I'm going to skip all the way down to this slide for a moment. What happens when you eat unhealthy food? Because I know about a lot of athletes don't all eat nutrient-dense whole foods, real food. And so we want to make sure just because we're exercising doesn't give you a whole pass to eat whatever you want. Garbage in, garbage out. So if you're struggling with exercise performance, inflammation, we want to also start with addressing what are you eating and looking at swapping better options for you to improve balancing your blood sugar, but also getting rid of inflammatory foods, some more anti-inflammatory diet, antioxidants in there too. So what happens when you eat unhealthy food? Just to review, we did this last time. Unhealthy, high carb foods, high in sugar, and usually high in vegetable oils that are inflammatory. Sugar causes fluctuations in blood glucose, so you get those spikes coming up super high, coming down super low. Now, when you have the super low, drops in your blood sugar encourage carb snacking. You might need to eat again. So if you're finding you're struggling to avoid snacking between meals, you're just not feeling full and satisfied, that's a red flag. We want to look at what's going on. Now, if you have increased carb intake, you're going to promote less fat burn. So we'll talk about how that lumen measurement or my PNOE test will help you. Now, if you're struggling with gaining weight, specifically fat weight, we want to look at how metabolically flexible you are. So are you burning carbohydrates at rest? When I do your PNOE metabolic testing cart, that's 10 minutes long, we'll get a 2-minute of consistent data and see where you're burning your fuel source at rest. And then we can measure while you are exercising on your bike, on your treadmill, rowing machine, whatever, we can adjust intensity every 1 to 2 minutes, depending on the protocol I'm doing, and then see what fuel source you are burning. Where are you burning the peak fat? What heart rate is that? And then where is your metabolic crossover point where the carbohydrates increase and the fat decreases? That would be your top of your zone 2. So metabolic flexibility, we can also see exercise test when I change you at different intensities, but bring you back down when we hit your peak. We're going to zone 5, your VO2 max peak. But what if I brought your heart rate all the way back down and we continued the test, increasing you back up to your zone 2? Are you burning fat again? Or do we come back an hour later and do the test again just to see of your zone 2, how efficient you are? So it'd be fun to kind of play around with the PNOE metabolic testing cart. Who wants to play and test and not guess, let me know. We'll come out to Del Mar and we'll test you. Go for a beach walk afterwards, even though there's a shark attack there this morning. So don't go deep in the water. So anyway, so you got the metabolic flexibility here. If we eat real food, nutrient dense food, get rid of the sugars and the garbage and the processed foods and all the fillers, all the colorings and all that stuff, which I will do. I have a great handout from Dr. Eric Berg, spoke at the conference yesterday and has a great handout on the processed foods. So balanced carbs, healthy fats, ample protein. We're getting that fuel for the workouts. If we're doing depending on what type of workout you're doing, what intensity, that's what heart rate. And we want to balance up glucose. So we want to have your glucose resting, we want 70 to 90, and then it spikes up when you have a meal, maybe goes to 120, max 130, and then it comes back down to your baseline 70 to 90. It's optimal. So we have these variations, but you don't want excessive, way up high, way down low, up down. We want that right amount, so glucose variability. We want to be burning fat and carbs. So if you can't burn carbohydrates, that's another way of looking at metabolic inflexibility, if you're efficient of just burning fat. So that's a good conversation to have with some people that research metabolic flexibility. What if you are not flexible other direction, fat to carbohydrate? Good thought. Healthy insulin sensitivity, you're metabolically flexible, you've hacked to achieve health and weight loss goals. So let's go into impaired metabolic flexibility. Metabolic inflexibility is something we want to look at if you're stuck. If you're having more fat deposits, if you're gaining weight, you're not able to lose weight, you're trying to do everything right. But what if you're just not metabolically flexible? How do you do that? We'll talk about that. What is your insulin level? Are you insulin resistant? So we want to look into that. Are you exercising? How are you exercising? Are you prioritizing protein in your meals first and eating it first? But also, are you moving throughout the day? That's your movement, not your exercise, movement. And then we have exercise. Are you doing strength training 2 to 4 times a week? Even once a week, something. Are you doing different workouts that are using glucose as fuel, or lower zone 1, 2 that you're more getting aerobic metabolism using fatty acids for fuel? So we're using fat or carbohydrates, probably not using the protein for fuel. And then you can use lactate for fuel. So We can go deep into exercise intensities and what fuel source you're using, how mitochondria are involved there. So we can go into that if you want. Beta oxidation glycolysis, and then the higher heart rates, we're going more creatine phosphate. Oxidative phosphorylations where we're burning a little more fat for fuel, and that's that zone 2. And that can help for metabolic flexibility. So we can look at these nice infographics. At rest, moderate intensity is at zone 2, zone 1, 2. High intensity workout at zone 4, 5. So you're not, hopefully, breaking down protein, you're burning fat, but down at rest, you should be burning fat. So that's where we want to see, are you burning fat while you're laying around? You're burning some glucose, but primarily depending on fat. And then you can use ketones if you're going into nutritional ketosis. Now, exercise intensity, what fuel source? We can go a little deeper dive. During the low intensity exercise, the body's preferred fuel is going to be free fatty acids. And it's going to be more efficient. We produce larger amounts of ATP. Fatty acids are the primary energy source here. When the fat reserves are being used, we have a limited amount compared to carbohydrate storage in our muscles and our liver. The lower intensity exercise will help you go longer. So more of our endurance athletes, we're going to train more in our zone 2, maybe not as much as you're a female of the age. We don't need as much zone 2 training as we used to. Then men might need a little more than us. So it's going to be a little different per person and for gender and phase of life. Now, glucose is different because glycogen stores can be depleted. So that's going to be more your short intensity training. And as glycogen stores are depleted, the glucose supply becomes depleted and fatigue can set in if you don't properly fuel and recover into zone 1 in between. Now, if you use a lumen, we'll go into this a little bit more, but you want to measure your breath before working out. If you're doing an anaerobic workout, you want to see that lumen say a 3. That means 50% carbs and fat. Or maybe it's a 4. 5 is all carbs. 1 on a lumen is the fat. Now, after you work out, if you are metabolically flexible, we want to see your lumen back down to level 1. So we want to measure first thing in the morning, pre-workout, post-workout, 30 minutes after. So what fuel source are you using during intense exercise? So again, another graph if you're visual, watch the video, but you're doing more higher intensity. Yes, you're burning more calories at higher intensities. So we want to look at that, but you are using more muscle glycogen. Is this, what color is that? Turquoisey, gray, whatever color, green. Muscle glycogen. And then we've got the plasma glucose, blood glucose, and plasma free fatty acids, and then other fat sources. So if we're down here, zone 1, maybe this is zone 2, and this is going to be maybe your zone 3. So you can see as the intensity goes up, your fuel source changes, right? Now, another chart to see visual when you're doing sprint interval training, 2 minutes or more, you should be back in the aerobic glycolysis system. If you're doing 1 minute, 10 seconds, 2 seconds. So when we're lifting heavy weights, when you're doing some plyometrics, you're gonna be up here, creatine phosphate. So that's why we need creatine. And women, especially when we're lifting heavy weights and doing these short intensity intervals, we are more zone 5 and more using stored muscle glycogen and creatine phosphate fuel sources used in those higher intensities. So we need to supplement with creatine because we're not getting enough. If you listen to the podcasts out there on creatine. So we've got phosphatogen system, anaerobic glycolysis system, aerobic glycolysis system. So you're always burning some carbohydrates, not just fat in that zone 1, 2. So I'm going to say that. Now, to fuel or not to fuel during a workout, this is where I think the lumen is beneficial. So digestive issues, metabolism, your patterns we see, we want to figure out what's best for you. So the picture here is a pizza, but maybe that's not ideal. Good practice that you monitor how you are feeling during the workout. Do you feel bloated and uncomfortable? Take notes, journal, write on your Training Peaks workout or write on your phone notes or wherever you track your workouts if you do. How do you feel if you eat or not eat? Solid food versus liquid calories. Maybe you need some supplements. I've been trying to take L-carnitine before my workouts in zone 2 to help improve my fat burning. So pre-workout nutrition metabolism, you can go to lumen.me on their blogs. This is super fascinating to me. So if we can put all this together, I do, as I said, the PNOE metabolic testing cart. Then we can figure out your zones, what your zone 2 is, where you're burning fat. Sprint training is all out to your max. HIIT training, and then coming down into zone 1 between your zone 4 or 5 workout intervals. Zone 1, back up. Now, if you're doing, say I'm doing a zone 2 workout, zone 1, super easy recovery day. Or maybe I'm going for a long hike or bike ride. I'm working on my endurance. I want to see my Lumen breath test a 1 or 2. If I'm planning to go on my bike and do hill repeats and do some pickups, I want to be showing that I'm a 3 or 4 so I can have that carb metabolism on board to hit those high intensity interval trainings. So if you're a competitive athlete, Lumen says, you want to figure out your measurements on training days, not necessarily on race days. This will help you get enough time to understand how your unique body works and your metabolism so you don't feel uncomfortable or bloated or sluggish, fatigued. You just can't hit those intervals. You can't get your heart rate to your zone 5. You don't have the leg power to do that sprint or that plyometric or that jump or whatever. And that's a plyometric, but whatever. I'm trying to think what I do. I get my heart rate running stairs or short sprints on a hill, riding my bike or running. That works best for me to get my heart rate up. Or on a treadmill, putting the speed up and doing intervals on there for 20, 30 seconds and recover. So if you feel that your performance is struggle for you, you might want to try a Lumen breath test to see where you are. And then if you need a little snack beforehand. So example, this person on the Lumen website said they started experimenting with pre-workout fueling, using the Lumen before working out, see if they need to have a snack or not, depending on workout. She blew a Lumen score of 3, so she knew she's ready to work out with extra fuel for a harder workout. She said she's been telling herself, Lumen's been telling her that she's burning fat or carbs if you need fuel out for a workout with some carbs. So if she was planning on doing a easy workout and she blew a 3 or 4, she might want to change that workout plan and add in some sprints. Get that? So if you want to get that body back into fat metabolism, your body is already burning carbs. You want to burn out those carbs by using them for fuel during a sprint training, HIIT training workout. If she was burning a 1-2, burning fat, she might not feel like eating, then that workout's going to be a little bit easier. Zone 1-2 heart rate. So really cool to correlate with your heart rate training. Now, again, pre-workout is going to be personalized, right? So you are different. Every day might be different. So your pre-workout nutrition impacts your energy levels and your body's metabolism you need in your exercise program. So you want to figure out the right nutrients, figure out your macros, the balance of proteins, fats, and carbs to give yourself optimal metabolism, tracking your food, what combinations work best for you. We have to document this for a little bit, not forever, but just a few weeks, just really understand what's going on. Plus, I think a month. So if you're female cycling, you want to get that whole hormonal change of all the luteal phase, what goes on different than follicular phase and ovulation. So you want to take into all these considerations of the times you're eating before your workout, revealed uncomfortable sluggishness. We talked about energy and fuel. So that's a good article on the Lumen blog. Again, so if you're doing a fat burning type of low zone 1-2, if you're doing HIIT, you can see the fuel coming from carbohydrates in that yellowy color, pink colors coming from fat. So You want to match your fueling or not fueling based on your Lumen score pre-workout, depending on your workout. So what does that look like? Matching your fueling if you're looking to gain muscle, if you're trying to burn more fat. What is your goal if you're doing endurance training? Might be a little different. So it might be timing my meal the night before if I'm doing a workout in the morning, or if it might be the lunch if I'm doing something 2-3 hours later. So I need time to digest my food. So you have to play around with it. So pre-workout, again, depends if you're trying to do weight loss, your performance, or just workout. I don't know why that's there again. Okay, so let's drop to PNOE. So this is example of the chart. When we're doing an exercise test, your heart rate's going up, and then we measure recovery comes back down. I'd love to test someone, as I said before, let's rest, come back, maybe eat something, and let's see what happens if we go back up to wherever we found your metabolic crossover point. So say this is your fat here, this is your carbohydrate. So this point, not exact number, but this is kind of the range where you have that shift in fuel sources from fat to carbohydrates as your primary fuel source. Whereas your peak fat burning is where, probably up here, right? So this is their peak and it starts to come down. So whatever this heart rate was, that'd be probably the bottom of zone 2. And their zone 1 would be 10-15 beats before that. So if you can figure out your exercise metabolism and then use a Lumen day to day, and then retest with me every 3 months, that would be optimal. So the PNOE test, we're finding multiple things, your VO2 max, your fueling, switching, or what used to be called anaerobic. So where you're shifting to using oxygen or not oxygen for your fuel source for metabolism. So aerobic efficiency is how well your body uses oxygen during exercise. And that we'll see variations in your heart rate, your breathing rate, muscle activation patterns. We can see your fat and carb burn. So how much fat and carb metabolism to energy production during exercise can help figure out your training and nutrition strategies. What we're looking at with PNOE and Lumen, the similarity of the two are your RER. The respiratory exchange ratio is the oxygen in and carbon dioxide out, the ratio of the two. Lumen research is using the data from your carbon dioxide to figure out your fat to carb burn. So we'll talk about that when we do a Instagram live with Lumen. Now your resting metabolic rate, when we're doing the 10-minute test with PNOE with the face mask on, we're measuring the amount of energy your body uses at rest and help us determine your calorie needs. Okay, so we look at what RMR is during the PNOE test and then compare that against age, gender, height, weight. So we want to measure your metabolism. The 0.7 to 1.0 is the RER. RER 0.7 is going to be more fat, 0.8 is mixed, 0.75 more the low carb diet people will have a little more fat burning, but that depends on your activity level, right? Negative energy balance, high fat diets, if you're eating more fat, protein, if you're eating high carb diet, your RER is probably going to be closer to 1. So that's your resting test. So we can see versus PNOE versus Lumen, the differences. So Lumen is going to be just that CO2 measurement. And we can see in Lumen the first morning breath and see that on a PNOE test that could be in the morning or afternoon. That's 10 minutes, what the patterns are, correlations. So high fasting RER means glucose oxidation, inability to switch fat to oxidation. So remember RER 1.0 is going to be carbohydrates. Lower 0.7 is going to be fat. So figure out where you are at rest. If you don't have the ability after overnight fast to be burning fat, it's a red flag. And then I want to look at your blood chemistry panel. What's your insulin sensitivity markers? So this is a good area we want to look at. Are you prone to insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes? So we want to look at that and measure metabolic flexibility here and look at your energy balance, your macronutrient composition, looking at your stress, because stress will raise glucose. We want to look at your quality of sleep. So all those lifestyle habits, it's not just what you eat and how much you exercise, but it's really the stress and the sleep and the movement we want to look at, as well as gratitude and play and laughter and digestion and gut health. So another good chart I always love to look at. This one's really nice. Excuse me. So if you're watching the chart, you can see to the right, this is our endurance, that zone 1, 2. But see this bottom color, still using that carbohydrates, glycolysis, oxidative phosphorylation here, metabolic crossover point, and then from there it's glycolysis, and then we get into more of the phosphagen system, and then the free ATP, creatine phosphate. So you can see high power exercise, sprints, weightlifting, so that's your zone 5, power, short duration, that's going to be your zone 3 and 4. Zone 3 is probably here, zone 4 here, and then get up to zone 5. So this shows you a great picture of the mitochondria, oxidative phosphorylation, fatty acids go through beta oxidation, acetyl-CoA into the Krebs cycle, and the Krebs cycle comes out. We've got ATP, lots of it. When we create glycolysis, glucose goes through pyruvate into the Krebs cycle. We only have a little bit of ATP, so we have to keep making more and more and more. When we're down here, the long sustained distance zone 2, we're going to see a lot more ATP, but we have to go slower to get that going up. So you can see the creatine kinase, CK, is made here over in the phosphagen system, creatine phosphate, creatine. So all these words are kind of the same for creating ATP up at these higher intensities. So that includes weightlifting and your sprint interval training. Why women, again, more than men, research I've read or podcasts on creatine, we need to supplement 3 to 5 grams a day. I use Keon, I use Thorn. I have that in my water. Actually, I have it in here now. I'm just drinking it. I don't even taste it, actually. Okay, so zoning and fueling, we can talk about on the podcast, but really looking at zone 2, what is that for you? And where do we need to improve? So looking at improving your metabolic crossover point with how you train, and that's going to be different for everyone, men versus women, but also you as an individual. So it's not this one size fits all approach. We can really personalize what intensity, heart rate ranges, wearing a heart rate chest strap, not just looking at your watch. That's not as accurate as wearing a heart rate strap, as well as using that for your heart rate variability tests. So I want to look at all that. So again, low intensity, moderate, higher intensity, what is best for you to get the results you want? Again, personalized training. So what fuel source do you need to spend more time in zone 2, or do you need more HIIT training? You know, where do you want to get results? So good infographics. So we use in PNOE 5 zones. Zone 1, used for your warm-up, active recovery, or maybe this is where you're recovering from injury, but also from interval training where you're doing the high intensity coming back down. Zone 2 is where we're doing that long sustained distance, developing mitochondria function. This is where you can improve, one of the ways to improve your fat burning efficiency. This is often recommended for endurance athletes, for doing endurance sports, as doing a marathon, 50-mile bike ride. You know, you want to look at that, as well as people, if you are metabolically inflexible, we might want to stay around here a little more. Improved mitochondria function will support recovery capacity, helping you recover fast after the intense bouts of exercise. That's more zone 1, I think that's zone 2, but coming back down at least zone 2. Now, zone 3, that's where we fall in our world of more tempo workouts, you know, doing the 10 minutes up at this heart rate or 20-minute pieces. Training here helps pulmonary muscles, cardiovascular function. If you have a lung or heart problem, with your doctor's permission, maybe you're doing some short duration in zone 3. building up your heart health, moderate intensity. So it's good for stimulus for heart and lungs without being exhausted or overly strenuous as you do zone 4 and 5. Then we get into zone 4. That's where you hear zone 4 and 5 or VO2 max. To improve VO2 max, this is where you want to be, not every day, 1 to 3 times a week. VO2 max, its ability to sustain high intensity exercise here. For longer durations, you're improving lactate shuttling, which is really important information here. If you've heard of lactic acids causing that fatigue, it's not. It's the acidity in your blood that's causing the fatigue, phosphorus. But lactate is a byproduct of your anaerobic metabolism, but it can be used, recycled back into a fuel. So it says, for as long as your body can clear the fatigue byproducts faster than they're being produced, the exercise intensity remains sustainable. As a result, the greater your lactate shuttling capability, the greater your ability to sustain high exercise intensities for long periods of time. So training more at or around this area, you'll be able to sustain that level because you're able to clear the byproducts of this metabolism. Now, zone 5, where you're able to improve VO2 max, this is where you can improve your peak output, your max speed, your cycling wattage. The exercise intensity is sustainable. They say 60 to 120 seconds, but we know above that, we've got the high end of zone 5 is going to be that 10 to 30 seconds, that burst training, or known as sit, sprint, interval training. So we can look at longevity. The secrets to longevity are learning how to stay in which zone, improving that metabolic crossover point, improving your metabolic flexibility. When is a low carb diet good for you? When should you add in nutrient dense carbs? Which I think carbs, I want to change that word when we talk about berries in season, or good sources of carbs are more your potatoes, sweet potatoes if you're an athlete. Some people can't tolerate them, so it depends. I'm not going to eat, asparagus, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower before a workout, but maybe some berries and cottage cheese, my super gut yogurt. So what can you do? Fat loss tips, enhancing metabolic flexibility. Support your mitochondria health. There's certain supplements, foods to improve that, the way you train, the way you recover, the way we sleep. But we want to have aerobic and anaerobic metabolism, or rather different fuel sources. We don't want to say aerobic or anaerobic because you're burning carbs, remember, in both phases. So you want to look at different zone training and be able to eat the right foods to fuel your workouts that you're doing. We want to support our mitochondria where we're creating that ATP. So we need foods rich in antioxidants, nutrients support mitochondrial function, and that's where we hear about omega-3 fatty acids, CoQ10, vitamin C and E for those antioxidants. Practice intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating helps boost mitochondrial efficiency and fat ox, but this is where I think it's different for those that are fit and active, how long your intermittent fasting for athletes. Ben Greenfield taught me years ago in our programs, coaching programs, that we want to do 12 hours for a lot of athletes. Maybe 15 hours is your longer end of fasting, but 12 hours, even Dr. Stacy Zim says 12 hours is enough for athletes for digest rest. So if you want improved performance, we want to look at metabolic health. Get the right nutrition, get the right recovery and repair and sleep. And if you want to boost mitochondrial function, I don't know why the mouse came up on there, but perform high intensity interval training when appropriate. This stimulates mitochondria biogenesis, creating new mitochondria, improves energy efficiency. Prioritize sleep, stress management to reduce. This is a big thing we're going to talk about upcoming episodes, but oxidative stress. That's what athletes in our world were doing too much exercise, too much long stuff, or too much high intensity, that we're creating a lot of oxidative stress. And how do we manage that? How do we reduce it? How do we support antioxidant production? So We're going to do some upcoming shows on that. So longevity, we want to look at metabolic health. We want to look at reducing disease risk. Metabolic health lowers chronic diseases as type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, obesity. For athletes, I think big area, minimize inflammation. Efficient metabolism reduces chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation or anything with chronic will probably be related to increasing aging, speeding up aging. So chronic and aging, and I'll write that down. Enhancing cellular function with healthy metabolism to support optimal cellular function repair mechanisms, overall vitality, longevity. So keyword vitality, I think summarize this all together: metabolic flexibility, mitochondria health, and metabolic health. So we want to age gracefully, healthy mitochondria, we're always in here. Mitochondria dysfunction, metabolic flexibility, mitochondria health, they're connected. So we have to have healthy mitochondria to switch, to have the metabolic, have the ability to switch between carb and fat metabolism. We've got to go backwards. Root cause, mitochondria dysfunction. It's not just what you're eating and when and how you're training, but we want to make sure we have healthy mitochondria. We can also relate that to chronic stress, cell danger response, heart rate variability, vagal nerve dysfunction. It's all connected. Liver congestion. I mean, nothing works by itself. So it's not just mitochondria. Everything's connected. It's that domino effect. Metabolic chaos. Metabolic inflexibility, often due to mitochondria dysfunction, impairs the ability to adapt to different energy sources, leading to metabolic stress and health issues. So to improve the aging process, let's work on mitochondria health to help metabolic flexibility. So measuring it using Lumen after we do your PNOE test, that will help figure out where you are. Metabolic flexibility is our goal, to be able to switch, stay in fat burn, but we're doing high intensity exercise, go up to carbs, come back down. Or if you are going to eat a high carb meal, if that's your choice, you should be able to come back down to fat. If you are eating a high carb meal and you're not coming back down, you shouldn't be eating high carb meal. So you have to have metabolic flexibility. So we want to be able to switch back and forth. And we want to see the changes when we have those meals, have that type of exercise. So remember, the poor fuel switching, if you can't transition between carbs and fat, you're going to have inefficient energy production. Maybe you're feeling sluggish. So if you're not able to adapt, you might have struggle more with your weight. You can have weight gain instead of trying to figure out you're doing all the right things but can't get the desired results. We're going to look at your metabolic health, metabolic flexibility, mitochondria function. Maybe you are exercising, but maybe you're exercising up too high all the time of heart rate, and you're not efficient at burning fat for fuel with how you're training. So we want to look at all this because it's all connected. So we have this whole connection of metabolism and weight loss, fat loss. We want to look at your genetics. We want to look at your insulin levels. That's all connected. Being insulin sensitive, really important to part of better metabolic flexibility. And using the Lumen can help. It measures your CO2. It's a flow meter, breath test. You breathe in, do a breath, and you get the measurement. And you have it on an app. It tracks it. Do it in the morning and help you understand your metabolic state. But I really think you need to do the help. You don't have to, but it'd help more if we did your metabolic PNOE test first. So you can learn how to choose your macros and learn how to manage your stress and to move throughout the day and how to exercise. So you're measuring your fats or carbs when you do the breath test, your RER, we went over, respiratory exchange ratio. Remember, metabolic flexibility is a fuel, fat or carbs, and the ratio between the two, or you go forth. So it uses different scores, 5 levels. So let's go over those real quick. Lumen level 1, your glycogen stores are low, using mainly fat for energy at accelerated pace, proves your body's ability to use stored fat for energy. Staying at this level too long, though, can plateau your weight loss. So it doesn't, more is not always better, right? Less is more, the Goldilocks effect. Staying there all the time, you don't want a one. That's someone that's been in nutritional ketosis maybe too long. They've lost the enzymes needed to have for carbohydrate metabolism. Level 2, glycogen stores. Whoops, didn't put a bullet there. Using fat for energy improves your body's ability to use stored fat for energy. Staying at this level too long can apply to weight loss as well. So it's similar to level 2. And then level 3, glycogen stores are moderately full. Burning balance of both carbs and fat. Staying at this level can help maintain weight loss. Short, high-intensity workouts at this level to optimize fat burn. So if you're showing a level 3 before your workout, you might choose more of this short, high-intensity workout. And then test post-workout, remember, it should come down. Now, a level 4 means your glycogen stores are almost full. Level 5 means the stores are full. So you're burning mostly carbs. Zone 4, zone 5, mainly carbs. Eating high carbs at this level for a prolonged time may lead to fat gain. High intensity workouts at this level improve performance. Zone 5 or level 5, you're burning carbs. Staying at this level too long will likely gain to fat gain. So this is why I like Lumen so much, to help people figure out what to do each day, really individualize your exercise and your training, recovery, and your fueling plan, how to exercise, so we can help this fat loss. So we've got this flex score as well. You got Lumen measures the CO2, helps your metabolism if you're burning carbs or fats. We went over that. This flex score, fat or carbs based on scale 1 to 5, we get that each day, but then it has this, measures this flex score, how flexible your metabolism is over the week. So this measurement based on 2 weeks of measurements, not 1 week, 2 weeks, and other tracked metabolic factors determine your flexibility. So get the score. It also can be used to figure out, should you do fasting? How long should you fast? Should you break your fast? So taking your wake up breath, starting your fast, help you figure out your fasting window or your time restricted eating window. And then when to extend your fast, when you start to shift to your Lumen score goes up higher. So you want to be fasting, you should be showing the Lumen 1 or 2. We can also use this as meal timing. And you can look at eating window using the Lumen, macronutrient manipulation. So we'll talk about this on our upcoming Instagram Live with Lumen. Working out with Lumen to improve mitochondrial function, efficient at fat burning. But this is where I want to combine PNOE metabolic testing tests that we do every 3 months with your Lumen day-to-day measurements. So remember, ATP creatine phosphate system is a purple line, orange yellow line, short-term energy, long-term energy, burning more fatty acids, right? So you see that activity of energy, duration. So we look at metabolism in your exercise, lower intensity versus higher intensity, doing strength training, adding more heavy weights to add in your lean body mass will increase your metabolism. So looking at pre-workout nutrition, I think I talked about enough, but that's going to be using that Lumen to figure out, okay, do I need to eat something or not? And then there's some good information post-workout. Do I need some carbs and protein? How depleted am I to replenish those glycogen stores? So take a measurement 30 minutes before, and then after, maybe up to 45 minutes, you wait. So post-workout Lumen 1 to 2 means your body depleted. The majority of its carb stores during exercise shifted towards fat burning. Post-workout. Remember EPOC, exercise. We still say EPOC when you're doing exercise, post-oxidative stress. It's EPOC. I'm drawing a blank, but you burn more calories afterwards. So you're going anaerobic, then come back down, you should shift. So which workout is best for you will vary day to day. And then we want to work on sleep. Sleep is crucial. Lack of sleep causes hormone imbalances, can increase your hunger and cravings, make weight management more challenging. Carbs are more effectively metabolized during the daylight hours, so consuming them close to bedtime can lead to digestive issues and difficulty falling asleep. But again, Goldilocks effect, if they're too low, some people need a little teaspoon of something to help them sleep. So is it recommended to avoid heavy, high-fat meals before bed, as their longer digestive time can cause discomfort and can block morning fat burn? So looking at the natural circadian rhythm, looking at your sleep timing, meal timing is really helpful. I have to eat earlier, not have a big meal before bed, or else my sleep will be horrible. So the approach, grounded nutritional science, enhance overall sleep. Those that sleep around 7 to 9 hours are 35% more likely to reach fat burn state in the morning compared to users who sleep 4 to 6 hours per night. So really fascinating data they're collecting. So how to improve your metabolism to lose weight, strategic carb timing, strategic nutrition around your workout, depending on the intensity, getting in that strength training, cardio, HIIT training. Also, I'd say movement throughout the day, not just doing that and then sitting on your rear end all day. What type of exercise we want? Variation. Studies show that resistance training enhances metabolic rate and reduces body fat. So the recommendations are at least 150 minutes of moderate aerobic activity or 75 minutes of vigorous activity a week, plus muscle strengthening activities 2 or more days a week. And that's going to vary per person and how long you've been training. Like me, I don't need all my workouts zone 2. I need recovery zone 1, 2 in between my hard workouts based on my genetics and my hormones. So sleeping, stop eating 3 hours before bed, measuring your metabolic status. Morning breath test will help you figure that out. On the Lumen, and establish routine in your sleep schedule. Be consistent. Have a cold, dark space. Have your sleep cave. Now, glucose, trying to look at that with glucose as a Keto Mojo or NutriSense is really helpful to monitor your glucose levels and looking at that data as well as your heart rate variability. So Matt Walker did a whole long series on sleep with Huberman on Huberman Lab podcast, but some tips here. His 11 tips to improving sleep quality. Find a routine, consistent sleep schedule, cut the late night cardio, avoid intense exercise 2 to 3 hours before bedtime. Reduce caffeine and nicotine. Limit these stimulants as they disrupt your sleep pattern, especially look at your genetics. Tamp down on alcohol. Heavy alcohol consumption before bed leads to disrupted REM and breathing issues. Also, I just went over a podcast with someone that alcohol before bed takes over digesting your food. So if you had alcohol and a dinner, you're going to probably have digestion issues as well as waking up middle of the night because your sleep is going to be disrupted. Now, eating light at night is a better idea. Smaller snacks, not having a large meal, more larger meal in the middle of the day or maybe earlier in the day. Talk about to your doctor. I wouldn't say, change your medication, but change your medication with your doctor if it's impacting your sleep. So you want to look at the best time of day to take your prescription drugs. If you have to take them, work with your doctor on that. And then supplements. There's some supplements that you shouldn't take later in the day. So leave time to unwind. Have a pre-sleep routine. I call it sleep hygiene routine, letting everything off your mind, using a journal, doing something that helps you calm down and unplug, disconnect, and help optimize sleep. A hot bath before bed can help lower body temperature. It's kind of funny. I just saw this in a seminar this weekend, but cold plunge, cold shower in the morning actually helps your body temperature go up. And then a bath at night actually helps lower your body temperature. So it's opposite what you think. Your body hormetic stress, I guess it goes one extreme and recovers, goes back up. So maybe cold, your body warms up faster. Hot at night, having a sauna or a bath, it will actually help you lower your body temperature. So interesting. Check your devices, get them out of your bedroom. No EMF, no phones on, put them in airplane mode, charge them in the kitchen or somewhere far from your bedroom. Dark, cold room we hear about all the time, but free from electronic devices, I think most people can improve on. Get some sun, at least 30 minutes of natural sunlight daily, especially in the morning, that morning sunshine. And avoid lying in bed too long. I heard this on his interview with Huberman. If you can't sleep, get up and do relaxing activity until you feel sleepy. So maybe it's get up, go read a book, and then come back to bed. So stress and metabolism, cortisol we've talked about, but that's a big topic to dive into. Stress management tips, common questions on Lumen, you can look up on their website. Metabolism, good question here. Does metabolism slow down with age? I keep talking about this. It does. But why? Loss of muscle mass. How do you resolve that? Exercise differently, lift heavy weights and eat your protein, staying active. So it's really funny when you look into this. What happens as we age, we can control so much of it. Do something about it, don't complain about it. Okay, so if you want more, send me an email. I'm here to help, and we're going to do a live with Lumen, but if you want to come do a metabolic test, let me know, and we'll schedule it in Del Mar or Solana Beach. Thank you.